I've spent the last few years teaching women that their identity isn't in what they produce. And then I sat down to go through the publisher's edits of my own book, and I had to face the fact that I wasn't living out what I was teaching. Let me back up and tell you what I mean. I am in the middle of edits on my first book. It's called From Hollow to Whole, and it's coming out with NavPress in 2027. It just happens to be on identity and the unstable things we can place ours in. I've had 21 years of ministry, teaching, writing curriculum, sitting across from women untangling who they are. I've also had several years of co-writing and editing books that were being published. So I figured I'd walk into this process fairly steady. Oh my gosh, I was wrong. Going through this process has attacked not only my identity, but also my confidence in my abilities and talents. Because here are some things nobody tells you about editing. Editing doesn't just revise your manuscript. It puts a mirror in front of you and then proceeds to point out every flaw and mistake it sees. I have to tell you, it can be brutal. It causes you to face the question, is my identity in the pages, or is it somewhere the pages can't touch? And for me, I discovered that sometimes, right or wrong, it was in the pages. Here are 3 lessons that I learned from the editing process. Lesson number 1, you will have to defend things that you thought were just obviously true, and that will annoy you more than you expect. Somewhere around comment 200 of the 684 comments from the copy editor, he was asking me yet again to back up my claims, explain why what I said was true. And I caught myself thinking, because I said so, that's why. The editors questioned the Bible verses I used and how I applied them. They questioned my conclusions and the validity of them. It felt as if they questioned everything. Like I said, I've been living and teaching this material for over 2 decades. So some part of me expected that to count for something, to be proof of the concept. It does not. A reader who doesn't know you owes you nothing. You have to earn every claim on the page, and that was a hard hit of reality for me. I felt like I was in a courtroom having to plead my case with the editor and fight for the things I've seen and learned that led me to the premises and processes in the book I wrote. As I processed through my reactions and my feelings, I started to figure out where they were coming from. I realized that the editing process had triggered those same old patterns inside me. Here I was, once again, feeling like I was fighting for my identity rather than just what I had produced. I had to push away that lie that was telling me someone was challenging my integrity and replace it with the fact that we should not just believe everything we read or are told. In fact, it's wisdom not to. The people reading my book deserve to know the processes I've gone through to learn the things I have. I had to look at all those fixes requested by the editor through a different lens, the lens that they would produce a better book, a book that caused people to think and discover truth for themselves, which is ultimately what I was looking for. Lesson number 2, someone rewriting your own thoughts will feel like an invasion, even when they're not wrong. When you write a book, you are basically putting your heart and soul out in the middle of the street for people to walk on or even run over. An editor saying this might land better if you put it in a different way, that isn't just a note on the page. It's someone stepping into how you naturally think and explain things and telling you it's not working. Now that can feel like a direct hit on who you are. It can make you instantly defensive, and it sure did that to me. I had to keep separating this is a better sentence from this is an attack on how my mind works. When the editor would say, this doesn't make sense, I would think to myself, well, then you must be stupid. I seriously hate to admit that, but I tend to believe everyone's mind and thought should work the way mine do. You know what? Thank goodness that isn't true. Lesson number 3, the sheer volume of edits will overwhelm you before the content of them ever does. 600 plus comments to resolve. It wasn't any single edit that got to me. It was opening the document and seeing that number at the top. It triggered a full-on nervous system alert in me. I felt like I went from you are a gifted writer to everything you write is wrong with one sweep of multiple red marks of comments. Once I actually got into the edits though, I found that many of them were just small, simple things. For instance, At least 150 of them were asking me to change words into contractions. That's right, I had deliberately not used contractions in my 170-page book because I felt as though they were too casual for a Bible study workbook. When I was in English class in college, I was taught that contractions were used when we talk, but that they were unprofessional for writing. But on every one of them, in that 170 pages, the copy editor said, "I suggest a contraction here to maintain the conversational tone." Lesson learned. Like I said, the volume of edits just seemed so overwhelming at first. I felt defeated just looking at the page full of comments and lines. But as I started resolving them one at a time, it seemed to become more manageable. And as I really thought about the reality of it and got past the emotion, I realized that considering I had over 60,000 words in this book, 600 comments came to about 1% of the whole, if I'm doing my math right. For some reason, it felt better to me at that point. We were working on changing 1% of what I had written to improve it and make it a better product, which to me meant that 99% of the book was okay. Now, that doesn't work out perfectly because some of the comments were about whole sentences rather than one word, but the point still stands. It was actually a small part of the whole product. So those are just 3 of the lessons I've learned while walking through book edits. It's been a harder process than I was expecting. I've gone through this exact process with books I've co-written or ghostwritten. And even though it was hard, it didn't seem to affect me in the same way emotionally. Which brings me to the deeper lesson this editing process has taught me. Something I certainly wasn't looking for and didn't expect. It turns out it wasn't just self-doubt underneath all this. It was pride. And once again, I found that identity was driving my behavior. I've been the one who taught women to hold their identity loosely, to not need to be right, to not need to control how they're understood. And then an editor questions a paragraph I was sure about, and every instinct in me wanted to throat punch him. I wasn't just protecting a sentence. I was protecting the version of me that doesn't get corrected. Turns out I had built a little identity out of being the one with the answers. I didn't even know it was there until 600 comments came in and started poking at it. Once again, the researcher became the research. So what do you do when you catch your own pride running the show? Because honestly, pride can kill your book more quickly than poor writing. Well, I had to recognize it. I had to name that some of my resistance wasn't about clarity. It was about control. Then I had to replace that lie. My strength isn't in always being right. My strength is made perfect in weakness. That's from 2 Corinthians 12:9. And my favorite verse, I am God's handiwork, not my manuscripts. That's from Ephesians 2:10. I had to repeat that exchange every single time I opened the document because one good talk with myself didn't cover 600 comments. And when the defensiveness crept back in, because it did, over and over, I had to remember. I had to go back to the anchor again. So if you're in your own version of this right now, maybe it's not a book for you. Maybe it's a performance review, a parenting session, a ministry role you're not sure you're doing well enough. Whatever your version of the red pen is, it is not the verdict on who you are. And your instinct to defend yourself isn't something to be ashamed of either. That's honestly the truest thing I wish I'd known before I ever opened this manuscript. If this is where you're at, I would love to hear it. Drop a comment and tell me what your editing process looks like right now. And if you want more on untangling your identity from what you produce, subscribe. That's exactly what we're doing here every week. I'll see you next time.